For as long as I can remember, I've encountered many people who have had the strangest phobias. Some are afraid of pets, others are afraid of people, and some are even afraid of the color yellow. My fear may not be as weird as the last one, but even so, people are still surprised when I am terrified of Legos. I can't describe how much I am repulsed by them. When I see them, I just want to kick them as far away as possible and leave. Many people think my actions are unjustified, and maybe I'm a little crazy, but nobody had Legos inside their body. Nobody had Legos covering their entire throat and stomach. None of these people almost died from Legos. To be fair, it wasn't the Legos that almost killed me. It was the person who was playing with them. During that time, I was a babysitter. I was good with kids, and even though I didn't really like losing weekends to babysitting, I needed the money to move out on my own and go to college. The clients trusted me, and they knew me all my life, so much so that after a few months, they even recommended me to all their friends, and so I started working on weekdays as well. Everything was going great until I got a call to take care of a new child. The lady on the phone seemed sweet, kind, and gentle. She told me that she and her husband didn't need to go anywhere, but because their son was taking up so much effort and energy, they needed to have an afternoon off, even if it was just to watch a movie at home. They also told me that the neighbor across the street, Mrs. Gloria, recommended me. They lived a few blocks away, but I needed to work, so I went. I thought about bothering Mrs. Gloria before going, as I wanted to know all about that couple that had called me, but it was 7 a.m. and I didn't want to bother her. I rode my bike to the elderly family's house. When I arrived, I looked it up and down. It looked like a normal house, not very striking or special in any way, like the kind of houses I usually visit. I was about to enter, but a lady stopped me from behind, grabbing my shoulder and speaking to me.
You must be Chiara, right? Oh yes, I'm sorry, you startled me. Nice to meet you. You're Mrs. Thompson, right? Dear, call me Lois. Of course. Nice house, Mrs. Lois. Did I give you the address of this house? I'm sorry. I live in the house across the street.
When I turned around, I saw the lady's house. It was really huge and in perfect condition. I could tell she had a lot of money and a very good taste. Normally, I wouldn't go in her house because she had given me the wrong address. It seemed a little suspicious, but maybe it was my teenage innocence or my need for money, but I ended up trusting her and going to the house. As I entered the house, her husband, who looked the same age as her, welcomed me with open arms.
You must be Gloria's neighbor. Nice to meet you. My name is Al.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Al. My name is Chiara.
I know. Gloria told us so much about you. It's good to have someone we can trust to take care of little Ed.
They both walked me through the huge house to the boy's room. As soon as they opened the door, a little boy was on his back, kneeling against the wall. Trying to make a good impression, I went over to greet him.
Hello, little Edward. My name is Chiara. A pleasure to...
When I touched his back, the boy fell down and made a thud against the floor. This was not a child. It was a plastic doll.
Ed, it was very hard to find her. Take good care of your new babysitter because she will be the last one this year. You understand? Who are you? Oh!
Behind me stood the real Ed. This was a huge adult, over 40 years old. He was almost 6 feet tall, and his body was large and deformed. He was wearing a bib and diapers.
Yes, Mom. Yes, Dad. I'll take care of her.
I'm sorry, but I don't think I can take care of...
And before I finished, they closed the door and locked it. Edward looked at me with innocent and terrifying eyes, while drool was falling from his mouth.
Are you my new toy?
No, I'm not a toy. I'm a babysitter, and you must listen to me. Do you understand?
Look, Daddy bought me a huge bag of Legos. Do you want to play?
We will play later, but now I have to talk to Mom and Dad, and then I'll come back. Understand?
No! I want to play now!
Furious, the man dressed up as a boy jumped violently at me. While grabbing my head with one hand, he used the other to rub Legos in my face. They were just toys, but they hurt like hell.
Play! Play! Play!
Somebody help! Okay, I will play with you.
Suddenly, the man stopped and gave me a big smile.
Yes! Let's play the food game!
Yes, sure.
For the moment, I had no choice but to play along. I had some pepper spray stashed away. I could use it to escape, but I had to be cautious. As Ed threw Legos at a toy plate, I slowly approached my bag. I noticed that there was a moving camera in the corner of the room. They were probably spying on us, so I had to be careful.
Here's the food! Enjoy it!
Thank you, Ed. This is delicious, Ed. Did you cook it?
Dummy, you're not eating! I'll help you!
No!
With enormous violence, Ed jumped at me again. With one hand, he grabbed my hair, and with the other, he started shoving Legos into my mouth.
Ed, you're hurting me.
You must eat! So you'll grow up to be a big, strong girl! Eat or there'll be no dessert!
His gaze was totally lost. He had gone totally crazy from one second to the next. I closed my mouth as hard as I could, but that was the only thing I managed to do, as Edward opened my mouth with his huge hands and, full of Legos, almost shoved it down my throat. I wanted to vomit, but I had no room for anything. I was swallowing Legos like crazy. I was choking. I was having a hard time breathing in, and in the act of desperation, I kicked Edward, who let go of me and started crying.
You're so mean! I just wanted to feed you!
The kick wasn't even that hard. I looked at him, confused, as he spat the Legos from the floor. Suddenly, the door opened, and angrily, Al came to the rescue of his son Edward, while his wife came at me with a knife.
How dare you hurt our son? You brat! I will kill you!
As the woman ran towards me, I took my chance and took the pepper spray out of my purse.
You play with him, you damn witch.
No! Mama!
They both ran towards her as I ran out of the house, desperate. Many neighbors saw me leaving and quickly called the ambulance. I had swallowed too many Legos. The only thing that saved me from suffocating to death was that the doctors arrived quickly, as the ambulance was only a couple blocks away. After what happened to me, the elders were arrested and the whole truth came out. They didn't know my neighbor, they were just watching me. They wanted me to be Edward's next victim. These two people were not his real parents. He had been kidnapped when he was still a teenager, and from then on, they took care of him as if he were their own. Edward didn't know he was killing all those people, but his fake parents entertained themselves by watching him. Edward was taken to a crummy psychiatric hospital, but since I moved to the city and started working, I got permission to move him to a better place. He now recognizes me as his big sister. I'm no longer afraid of him for what he did to me, because just like me, he was just a victim of the real monsters who manipulated him too.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the video. If so, please leave a like. And also, a small percentage of people that watch my videos are actually subscribed. If you want to support this channel and make this channel reach the 1 million mark, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can change your mind later. Enjoy.
Daniel's body arrived? Yes, sir. Dr. Ramos is performing the autopsy.
Agent Cowley went straight into the forensic lab. Officer Brad followed him with a tense face. After all, it's the third dead body in a row. Inside the forensic lab stood experienced autopsy surgeon Dr. Ramos, who had just finished sewing the skull of a 19-year-old boy.
It seems he died from a blunt head trauma. Someone hit him from behind. He collapsed on the ground and died instantly, just like the two previous students. Did you find the other thing? Yes, sir. Which tells us it's the same person who killed Judy and Boris. Here, take a look.
Officer Brad took out a small plastic bag and handed it to FBI agent Edmund Cowley. A small Lego toy of a construction worker with blood was inside it.
Did you talk to the parents yet? No, sir. It's best if you tell them.
Agent Cowley met Daniel's family. His parents shattered in pain and shock, hearing the news of their son's murder. Daniel's mom fainted on the floor, but his dad somehow held the ground. Officer Brad started questioning him about the day Daniel died. Agent Cowley was inspecting the entire house with his sharp eyes, when he saw a little boy sitting on the mattress playing with his toys.
Is that your younger son, Mr. Rogers? Yes.
Agent Cowley sat beside Daniel's brother, Jim, and started a conversation with him.
These are all your toys?
Not that one.
Jim pointed out a small Lego toy of a construction worker. The hair at the back of Agent Cowley's neck stood up. He has seen a Lego toy like this before. Not once, not twice, but thrice. He controlled his palpitation and caressed Jim's hair.
Who gave these to you?
Daniel.
Your brother? Did he say anything about it?
He said the kid who went to heaven wanted me to have this.
Agent Cowley looked at Officer Brad. They both realized the untwined mystery hidden in the words of the 6-year-old.
Which kid?
He didn't say that.
Jim got up and ran upstairs with his robot car. Officer Brad looked at Daniel's father and asked,
What is he talking about? I don't know. Daniel never said anything like that to me.
Agent Cowley picked up the Lego toy from the floor and put it in his pocket. They left Daniel's house and got into the car parked outside.
What do you think Jim meant by this boy?
Moving furniture for every workout? There's a gym group round the corner. With lots of top quality equipment, the kind you don't have to rearrange the whole house for. Join now from as little as $13.99 a month.
Who went to heaven? The kid is dead, and Daniel knew something about it.
So, the person who killed that kid killed Daniel and these 2 other kids as well?
Possible. We need to check the school records.
Cowley could feel the investigation finally taking a fruitful turn. Whoever that toy belonged to has something to do with the death of 3 teenagers in his town. When Officer Brad and Agent Cowley reached Crimson High, the classes had just ended. Students were leaving for home, and Principal Morgan was locking his office.
Mr. Morgan? Agent, what brings you here? Within the last 3 months, did any of your young students, probably at the age of 4 to 6 years, die under mysterious circumstances?
What? No. Why do you ask?
Are you sure? Yes, sir. Crimson High never faced dark times like this before. This is the first time we lost students. We used to be a pretty safe neighborhood.
Officer Brad and Agent Cowley exchanged a confused look. If that Lego belonged to a dead student, then there must be some record. Suddenly, the school janitor came running to the Principal Morton and said,
Sir, she's here again. For God's sake, leave that woman alone. Just escort her outside the school grounds.
The janitor walked away with a sorry face.
What's happening here? Oh, it's nothing, officer. The cleaning lady used to work in our school after closing hours. She had this little boy named Rory. After he went missing, she's gone completely mad. She visits the school sometimes and stares at the kids creepily. Everyone wants me to throw her out, but I feel bad for her. What did you say? Her kid went missing? Yeah. Brad, do you have this report?
If she made a complaint, then of course.
Go check. Check it now!
Agent Cowley ran outside the school at full speed. He looked around and spotted the janitor escorting a disheveled-looking homeless woman outside the gate. He screamed,
Stop! Stop her!
The woman turned around and smiled creepily. She waved at Agent Cowley as if she came to say goodbye to him. A speeding truck seemed to arrive from the opposite side, and without hesitation, the woman jumped right in front of it.
Damn it!
The area got flooded with cops. After all, it was a recent crime scene. When the paramedics cleared the mutilated remains, Agent Cowley stood on the sidewalk. The trails of blood were still on the road. Officer Brad stood beside him with a disappointed face.
Sir, she filed a complaint about her missing son. She said she brought the kid to school so she could watch over him and work at the same time. The kid must have wandered around the school premises and someone abducted him.
Did the cops find out? What happened to him?
Sir, actually...
What is it? Speak up, Brad.
The cops found the kid's dead body in the woods 2 days later, sir. Someone smashed his head with a rock and left him there.
What?
What happened to the investigation of this case? The appointed officer didn't show much interest because he was the cleaning lady's son, not from a family of importance in this town? You're making me sick, Brad.
Officer Brad remained silent. He felt highly ashamed learning about the department's negligence over the poor kid's death.
Get in the car now. We need to see Principal Morgan. There has to be a link between the death of this cleaning lady's son and those 3 high school teenagers. I have a feeling she's the one who committed these murders.
They drove like madmen. Upon knocking on Principal Morgan's door, he opened it with teary eyes.
Come in, officers.
He sat them down and expressed his condolences over the death of that poor cleaning lady.
Mr. Morgan, the day her son went missing, who else was present in the school? She worked after closing hours, so probably the gatekeeper, but why do you ask? Are you sure? Can any of the students be there too? The gatekeeper is a strict guy, so there's no way students can sneak inside without getting noticed by him. Unless they were in detention.
A red alarm started going off in Agent Cowley's head. He looked at Brad and they both realized the entire scenario.
Yes, I remember now. 4 kids were sent to detention by their class teachers that day, so it means they were there when Rory went missing. Who's the 4th kid? Let me look at the register. I always write down a strike.
Principal Morgan went upstairs. Agent Cowley and Officer Brad were waiting patiently when they heard a muffled noise coming from the kitchen.
What was that?
They took out their pistols and started following the sound. What they saw swept the ground beneath their feet. A boy around the same age as Daniel was tied up and kept on the kitchen floor. His mouth was taped too. Officer Brad rushed to set him free. Agent Cowley tried to make sense of the situation when he heard Principal Morton's voice from behind.
You arrived at the wrong time, Agent.
He turned around and saw Principal Morton holding a pistol in his hand.
It was you? No! It was them! The 4 evil kids who killed my son because he saw them smoking weed in detention! That poor kid wasn't going to tell anyone, yet they lured him to the voice and took his life ruthlessly! Rory was your son? Hell yeah. I was thinking to ask Diana to marry me on Rory's birthday. I wanted them to give me the life that they deserved. I was finally ready to tell the town that Rory wasn't born out of wedlock, that he was my son, that I was his father! Oh my God. Yes, officer. These vermin killed the poor kid and left him to rot in the woods. Diana went mad. My last chance to have a family got ruined forever, and now today she gave her own life. No one could suffer in silence. Put the gun down, Mr. Morgan. I promise I will investigate the case and you will get justice. What will I do with justice now? I killed those 3 and left Rory's toy to let the town know it was his revenge. I took them to the dark alley and they followed their principal because they were scared, because they knew they were bloody murderers. Put the gun down, Principal Morgan.
Principal Morgan let out one last smile and shot the teenage boy. Officer Brad and Agent Cowley shot him right away, but what was done could not be undone. 2 dead bodies collapsed on the ground, and the terrifying Lego murders ended with a shocking turn. Agent Cowley left the town the next day. The case terrorized the townspeople. How far can someone go for love? That's the only question that remained in everyone's mind. For as long as I can remember, I've always been a very curious person. Many times being like this has been good, and sometimes bad, but the worst by far has been what happened in, as I decided to call it, the Lego place. Giving a bit more context, back then I had been exploring abandoned houses with my friends for months. They did it for fun, but I did it out of curiosity. I loved looking at the rooms and thinking about what had happened in there, but I never thought I would actually find anything.
Promise you'll send me pics.
Several days ago, we had agreed to go to a house on the outskirts of the city, but my friend had refused just that day, even though she wanted to come.
Sure. I'll go next time. I know. See you later.
I soon hung up the phone and wrote a message to Peter, the friend who was going to accompany me. We usually planned to go to places after his work, so he was always a little late, but never as much as on this occasion. I received his answer soon. It was an audio. I had a problem here. I don't think I can make it, Claire. Okay, I replied. Were you already there? He asked me seconds later. Yeah, I sent him. I knew I should go, but there was something about that house that made me want to go inside, so I decided to. I'll take a look, I told my friend. Without waiting any longer, I put my cell phone away and started walking towards the house. The tall, uncut grass and growing vines told me that it had been abandoned for a long time, but it didn't look deteriorated at all. The roofs and the entrances closed. In fact, I had to force a door, which I had learned to do long ago. It took several minutes, but I finally made it. Big, but it had 2 floors and several rooms, each one emptier than the last. There was even the typical graffiti that you would see in any other abandoned house.
How boring.
As usual, I marked each of the rooms I had already seen with a yellow color. The last one was the only bedroom on the first floor. It had a giant window with which I could see everything that was in the front of the house. Claire! That's how I managed to notice that my friend had arrived even before hearing him.
I'm here.
I waved at him from where I was standing before going to the front door. He looked at me a little annoyed. I was worried. You shouldn't have gone in alone.
I'm fine, okay? There's nothing interesting anyway. It's almost as good as new.
Really? Peter glanced around the house. Let's explore together. I might notice different things than you.
Fine, but not worth it.
Together, we toured the second floor first. Peter would open a door, survey the room, and then close it. He soon saw the last one in the area and said, "Everything is perfect."
You mean it's perfectly boring?
I mean, like new. It didn't take long for him to close the door, but this time he stared at the mark that I had made. Then he touched it and looked at his hand to see if it was dirty.
It's dry at this point.
But as if Peter hadn't heard me, he continued to examine his hand. Why did you mark it?
Why did I mark it if it looks like new? Makes no sense. I just wanted it to have something different.
I think you shouldn't have done it.
It doesn't matter anymore, does it? Let's go.
Just as we went downstairs, Peter and I saw the door to the only bedroom on that floor. Looks like you didn't check that one.
I didn't mark it, but I've already been there. It's the room I was in when you arrived.
My friend tried turning the door handle over and over again, but it seemed to be locked, which left me speechless. With a lump in my throat, I watched Peter force it.
There's no point in opening it again.
Are you sure you did it? I fell silent once again. All of a sudden, the place was starting to get very cold.
Why did you insist so much? This place has nothing.
Just let me see. What had that been? The wind was blowing at my ear, but there were no windows open. The sounds the door was making as Peter forced it was also driving me crazy.
Stop. Let's go.
Give me a second, Claire. I had goosebumps, although I didn't know if it was from the cold or something else.
Let's go, Peter.
He finally made it. Done, see? Now just in front of us was the same room as before, but this time it was full of colors. On the floor, there were only hundreds and hundreds of Legos.
What the hell?
I took a few steps forward and bent down to touch them.
They're real. Pete.
Suddenly, I felt something push me, causing me to lose my balance and fall on top of the Legos.
Ah!
I heard something behind me. The door had closed.
Peter?
I tried to get up, but there were so many Legos that I just fell back down. The weight of my body on those small objects was causing them to dig into my skin.
Open the door, Peter. This isn't funny.
I can't, it's locked again. My knees were burning more and more. It was unbearable, so I leaned on my hands for a moment.
Do something.
The tips of the Legos pierced the flesh of my palms as I heard Peter bang on the door. At some point it opened, so I quickly crept out into the hallway. I ran to the front door, but then it hit me. My friend was nowhere to be found.
Peter? Peter!
Suddenly, some knocks on the door next to me began to be heard. Claire! I hurried to open the door. As expected, there he was. Ah! Somehow, the Legos were digging into his skin with amazing speed, like it was just water. Ah! On his face, on his hands, on his legs, they were all over his body. I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. Suddenly, the door closed. There was a pale, thin boy with a trail of dried blood tears on his face next to me, but I couldn't even scream. Did you understand? Don't ever do that to my house again. In the blink of an eye, he was gone. It was at that moment that I left the place. I ran to my motorcycle, but my legs gave out and I fell on the ground. Claire! Oh my God! My friend was there, next to me, looking at my wounds. There were still a lot of Legos stuck in my skin.
How did you get out?
From that day on, I stopped exploring abandoned houses, as I didn't want to be tortured by some other spirit. I've tried to forget about the incident, but every time I see Legos, my wounds start to ache and make me want to throw up.